Hello and welcome to another great edition of Beyond the Hype. I'm your host, Alfred Edmond Jr., Senior VP and Executive Editor-at-Large at Black Enterprise. This episode of Beyond the Hype is brought to you by Nationwide. And yes, indeed, Nationwide is still on your side. Listen, for this conversation, it's really a critical conversation. And I know I say that every episode, but as a bona fide girl dad, as someone who cares about black girls and black women, from my mothers and grandmothers to my aunties and my cousins and my nieces. I mean, I have someone who has benefited and continues to benefit from the what black girls and black women bring to the equation, not only for the black community, but to the world. But here's my issue. Everybody benefits from black girl magic, but nobody, or at least not everybody who's benefiting, is investing in black girls' dreams. And it's been a sore point for me, again, as I looked at what my sisters, I have two sisters by family, and then I got a bunch of other sisters, and I look at what black women and black girls bring to the table, and everybody celebrates that, but not everyone is invested in black girl dreams. And this conversation and my special guest is really doing something really special, really important. And I'm talking about my guest today, Malikah Berry Rogers, who is the Executive Director of the Southern Black Girls and Women's Consortium. And she's here to talk to us about how we all can invest in black girl dreams, even as we benefit and the world benefits and to some degree exploits black girl magic. Welcome to the show, Malikah.
Well, thank you so much. I love that introduction. I love that investing in black girls' dreams. I mean, that's my heart. That's what I do all day, and so I really love to hear. I love to hear it coming out of someone else's mouth. I really do.
You heard me before. You know I'm all with you. I'm down with this. I'm here for it. I'm here for it. But right at the top, I mean, the reason why I was so happy that you were able to join Beyond the Hype on such short notice is because you got something really big coming up in a matter of days that I want our audience to be aware of, to support it, if they can physically be there, to be there. I want you to talk about the the Black Girls Dream Conference, which is taking place soon in Birmingham, Alabama. Talk
Absolutely.
about that, and then I think we can back into what's led to this conference, your bus tour. I know Meg The Stallion is now involved, very exciting. But talk about the Black Girls Dream Conference and what that's about.
So thank you first of all. I'm too excited to talk about it. But the Black Girl Dreams Conference is our annual event. Even during COVID, we would get together online, but this time we're going to inch out a bit and have everyone join us in Birmingham. And what the Black Girl Dreams Conference is an opportunity for us to meet each other, to share ideas, to recognize the value in investing in black girls' dreams and the value that we all intrinsically bring in the South as black women, to recognize those who have gone before us. Our conference is a conference of both black girls and black women. So there are tracks that are led by black girls, some of our Black Girl Joy grantees, and then there are tracks that are specifically for adults. And those we're speaking specifically to women who are leading girls' organizations. What we recognize when we started Southern Black Girls is that this was a nascent group of leaders, that the world hadn't yet coalesced. They hadn't brought all of these leaders together in one. And so what we realize is that this powerful group did not have the value of its intentional network. So what we get a chance to do at the Black Girls Dream Conference is actually bring this powerful group of black women leaders who are serving the needs of black girls and women in the South together to offer inspiration, issues, and talk about issues, but also offer some skills building and tools that would make our work easier as we take care of the most important people in our lives, the girls and women in our lives. And so the conference is a one-day conference. We are in Birmingham, Alabama. We're going to be at the Harbert Center, and you can find more about us on our website at southernblackgirls.org. The registration is free. Come. If you're in Alabama, if you're within driving distance of Birmingham, come. Because what we want is to see our network in person and make sure that this network is well equipped and well able to do more good work in the future.
I'm really excited about that, and I know the bus tour, Joy is Our Journey, Dream Bus Tour that led up to this,
Yes.
is kind of coming to its conclusion and culminating at this conference. But I know you hit 7 cities, I believe, and those are all free events as well. Talk about what that was meant to accomplish as it built up to the conference coming up.
What that is meant to accomplish, so what we always say about our conference, or excuse me, our bus tour is called Joy is Our Journey, as is our conference. And we talk about joy as a practice because joy is a catapult to dreams, and dreams are what we invest in and what is going to change the world. We often say to ourselves inside our group is that you invest in a black girl, you invest in the nation, you change the nation. And it's not hyperbole. It is absolutely borne out by the truth. If you take a look at who the black leaders are and where this energy is coming from, it's coming from the South, and it's coming from black women leaders. And so we often take this idea of joy and what we want to do in all the cities that we've visited thus far, coming up to the Joy is a Journey Dream Conference, is in bringing a little joy to places that we perhaps don't see and hear from every day. We went to Elaine, Arkansas, and Little Rock, Arkansas. We went to Selma, Alabama. We all know about Selma, but do we know about Livingston and Wilcox? We're going to visit Jackson. And so those of us who are kind of tuned into the news know that Jackson has been in the nation's news recently because of the water crisis. And so we're going to places that where black women are leading, where black people are living to bring joy, but as a way to restore and rejuvenate, to set bigger dreams so that we as Southern Black Girls and Women's Consortium can invest in those dreams.
You know, Malika, in an earlier conversation, when you talked about the focus of the consortium in Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, and West Virginia, those 12 southern states. And you blew my mind with some statistic around just how many people we are reaching in that particular
Yes.
part of the country when we talk about black women, black girls, and that broader impact on black people as a whole and the nation as a whole. And I know that's where the focus of the consortium's attention is regionally. Explain a little bit more about why that's important, even if you're not in the South.
So if you're not in the South, I venture to bet it's not an exaggeration to think that perhaps because of our nation's history with the Great Migration, you have a connection to the South. But if perchance you don't, 50% of the people in the United States who identify as black live in the South. And 50% of those people are women and girls. And so when we start to think about what shifts culture, the influence, particularly in the last 3 to 4 years, the influence that black people have on shifting cultures, on consumerism, on where we spend our time on social media, you're making an investment, or you're making a play for shifting the nation's culture and investments and markets and all because you spend time in the South. I think before our visionary founder and the anchor organizations that started Southern Black Girls and Women Consortium, they are all four foundations led by black women in the South. And what they were combating was a disinvestment in the South because folks had opinions that, quite frankly, have never held up to truth. These opinions had been holdovers from, I don't know that storyline, but if you were to take a look at Fannie Lou Hamer, Mrs. Coretta Scott King, Mrs. Rosa Parks, and women whose names we don't know as well, leadership has always come from the South. If there was any oppression, and a response to that oppression has generated from the South. The Montgomery bus boycott, when we want to talk about the power of a nonviolent march, we can look at what happened at Selma. When we want to look at integrating schools, we can look across Arkansas. All of this happens in the South. And so the disinvestment in the South was a moment of angst for these four organizations that got together. And they realized that what the South is contributing to the nation is not yet met by the wealth that philanthropy was offering. So they came together to create the Southern Black Girls and Women's Consortium so that we could, in a collective model, begin to invest in the South in the ways that we needed, but then also invite philanthropy in to see what it looks like to sit at the table with us and make decisions with us about what's important to fund in the South.
You know,
Because
and I do want you to go into some more detail because I do know your founder of the consortium is Latasha Brown, who's the co-founder
absolutely.
of Black Voters Matter. I know that the other Black women-led organizations include Truth Speaks Innovation Foundation, the Black Belt Community Foundation, the Fund for Southern Communities and the Appalachian Community Fund. And it strikes me as important because, again, it's an example of how black girl magic, or what I call black woman power, has always benefited, has always produced results, has always served, has always delivered, has always uplifted. And it strikes me as really an important milestone, which is why I wanted to have this conversation on Beyond the Hype, because what we're calling for not just a celebration of the creation of this consortium, but for what I said at the top of the show, an investment in this consortium. And I'm telling you, listeners and watchers right now, you're going to hear me multiple times saying, don't just clap your hands and say, oh, this is so wonderful. I am saying that we need to pay attention to this and be invested in it. Certainly financially, but obviously, like you said, show up. There's virtual presence, there's physical presence. By the way, you don't have to be a black girl or black woman. I'm talking to you, brothers, to support black girls and black women. You don't have to be from the South. But talk to me about what led to, what motivated, what was the catalyst that brought these organizations together. Obviously, doing great work on their own,
Yes.
but the idea is to kind of to be a force multiplier, both in terms of impact and fundraising. So just talk a little bit about the story of how this came together and how you came to become involved.
So Latasha Brown is the visionary funder who brought along the four foundations that you've met, the foundations that you mentioned earlier, and what really was the catalyst for her. Latasha is not at all shy about saying she is led by vision, and so she had a vision to both create Southern Black Girls and Women's Consortium, and at the same time, she had a vision to create Black Voters Matter, and brought along people on both sides of those visions to kind of move those organizations forward. And so what was her impetus for Southern Black Girls is her own personal upbringing in Selma, Alabama, but more painfully was learning that one of our partners, the Southern Rural Black Women's Initiative, did a survey, a study a few years ago, and the result was about nearly $5 million, $4.8 billion of philanthropic investments that went to programs in the South. Less than 1% of that went to fund programs that support girls and women, Black girls and women in the South. And so less than 1% was painful and shocking and took her back. And she, as an organizer, she is in philanthropy. She knows these circles. This is her passion. And to find that the investment was so small in a group of people who were doing so much, were quite literally punching above their weight, doing so much for this country, and the investment was so paltry, she realized that, like Black women do, when the solution is not created for us, or the door is not made for us, or the table is not set for us, she began to do exactly that for us. And she brought along the Fund for Southern Communities, the Black Belt Community Foundation, the Appalachian Community Fund, and her own foundation, Truth Peaks Innovation Fund, to create a space that could be a catalyst to aggregate funding from across more traditional philanthropy, who we say quite literally could not see what was happening in rural South because they didn't have networks that far. What we did was we created a network, or through those four organizations, their relationships, we began to network among women and say, are you doing this work? Are you doing this work? Let's listen to you. What's happening in your community? We created a network, and before we gave out any money, we listened to girls to understand what was going on in their lives. Another thing that often happens about the South is that there's scholarship created, there's studies done, but oftentimes that scholarship and research don't end back up in our communities. They end up in the ivory towers, which is a great place for it to be, but it doesn't actually turn into immediate response. If we were to raise the money and do the research in our communities among ourselves, we could then turn around right away and fund the things that we need, which is what we did. So we learned that girls experience their schools as places of racism. We learned that girls feel resilient, but perhaps are questioning their own intellect, which is something that, collectively pains us, that girls wonder if they're smart enough. They are equally as concerned about themselves as they are their communities, and they are really concerned about their family's economic stability. They are concerned about healthcare. They're concerned if their brothers and uncles are going to be okay. And so these things are weighty concerns. And our girls are ages 12 to 25. And so when we sat back and looked at this data, and there's more, but we kind of boiled everything up into those 4 points. When we sat back and looked at that data, the thing that was very clear to all of us is that doesn't leave much space for childhood. That doesn't leave much space to jump rope or hula hoop or hopscotch or learn the cornrow or learn to stand next to your grandmother and make good biscuits or
Or
learn to
how
stand next to
about
your
just
father.
how about just dream?
Just
How
dream.
about just dream?
Um, it just doesn't leave much space for that. So the way that you asked, how did we get started? We thought we are going to preserve black girlhood. That's what's important. We're going to make sure that girls who we know, who we love, who we don't know in the South get a chance to be girls. And then we as women are going to do the work to fund the things that they are worrying about. And the best way to fund those things are to fund black women led organizations who are doing the work in the South.
You know, I interviewed Liz and Don Thompson of the Cafe Foundation. Um, that's doing some amazing work, by the way, on funding and raising funds for innovative Black people in education. Liz schooled me when I interviewed her for this show and for interviewed them for another platform that I interviewed them for about how when school integration happened,
Mm.
the students got integrated, but all the Black teachers got pushed out basically. Now, they integrated the schools and the students, but they basically wiped out Black teachers, period, which is why now most of us can remember the first Black teacher we ever had, if we had one. My only one in elementary school was my third grade teacher, my beloved Miss Ware. But her larger point was that while we as Black people per capita actually give more money, we're more charitable than other populations. We may be the most charitable population in America based on most studies. At the same time, we're not as mindful and as strategic and even looking at ourselves as philanthropists. And their vision was that we are at a stage because now obviously we have much more resources available to us than our parents and grandparents did. You got Black people in corporate America. You got successful Black entrepreneurs. Just at a different level than maybe 100 years ago, 150 years ago, 200 years ago. That one of their goals is to challenge all of us to think of ourselves more intentionally as philanthropists, and so that we can form consortiums like this and contribute to consortiums like this on a bigger level than what many of us might think of. Well, I write a check to the UNCF, or of course I give to my church, all of which are good things, and all, but to close the gap that we're trying to close that in our communities in terms of disparities of all kinds requires a new level and new appreciation for philanthropy, and which I think the Southern Black Girls and Women's Consortium it represents an example of what the Thompsons were talking about when I talked to them. Um, Talk to me as we talk to the Black enterprise audience. Obviously, the audience is successful people, ambitious people, people who believe in Black excellence. They want to make a difference. We want to make a difference. But talk about what we can be and should be doing specifically to support the Southern Black Girls and Women's Consortium and other efforts like that.
So, because we are in the business of funding Black girls' dreams and investing in Black women organizations, I'm going to speak right to the money right away. So, I'm going to share with your audience and would love your audience to give us small donations and large donations. We want your participation in funding because more quickly than anything else you invest in, this money goes right back out. It goes right back out to communities. And while urban areas are important, and we fund urban areas in the South, we are also intentional to go to Elaine, Arkansas, as we visited during the bus tour, or Wilcox County, Alabama, in the Black Belt, and Jackson, Mississippi, because we know that while larger areas are getting resources and are visible, those communities may not be as visible and they may not have what we in urban areas consider to be the basics. Maybe there's not a United Way close by. Perhaps there isn't a Girl Scouts troop close by. Perhaps there isn't a Boys and Girls Club. And who then is filling the gap for those particular needs? These very small organizations that are about $250,000 as average. Those are the organizations, most of those women, to take care of the girls in their community, they're a little bit out of my paycheck goes here and a little bit out of someone else's paycheck goes here, and then we're going to volunteer our time to get this done. And women have come out of this, women who have changed the world, have come out of this model. What happens if we actually really invest in those change makers and those leaders? What more can they do with some resources and their passion? Because they've been living on their passion for a long time. But what more could they do with resources and some passion? So money is incredibly important, not because money is everything, but money fuels this work. It gives it steam. I would then also ask to join us on our Wisdom Council. One of the things that some foundations don't give you eyesight to is who is applied and how can I be involved in making some of these decisions. If you sit with us on the Wisdom Council, then you're able to be a grant selector and see the breadth of work happening, the breadth of need, and how narrow even our ability is to fund this work. We were exceptionally proud to have given out nearly $2.2 million to 71 organizations in our grant cycle last year. That was huge for us. We are incredibly proud to have done that. We need investment from your listeners and your viewers to do that again and every year that we can. We have a goal of raising $100 million. We've raised 11 million so far, 10 million so far. We want to do that as much as possible because every one of our dollars, most of our dollars go right back into the community. And that's important.
Yeah, and $100 million, if we all do it, is doable. And I spent a lot of time as someone who was raised in a working poor household in a working class community. I know my own journey that after you hear the word million, it all sounds the same. A million, 100 million, a billion, a billion. And it often seems very much out of reach. And so even part of my own education as a financial journalist who now works and lives in a world that's different from the one that I grew up in and is looking at money on a scale that's way different than what I understood prior to my mid-20s, is that as I spend a lot of time saying we have to expand our vision and expand our expectation of what is possible. And so as opposed to saying, well, $100 million is a lot, and it is a lot given where we're starting from, is well within what we can accomplish if we just decide, listen, I'm going to make that commitment. I'm going to challenge others in my community to make that commitment. And we can exceed that number. I know that's a first stage goal of 100 million, but we also know that the need is far greater. And again, I asked our listeners to check out the numbers you shared. That was a literal statistical expression of we benefit from Black Girl Magic, but we're not invested in Black Girl Dreams. $4.8 billion of philanthropic investment in the South, and less than 1% supports Black women and girls. I mean, that's a statistical, literal representation of investing in, or the lack of investment in Black girls.
Lack of investment.
So
yeah.
I really, I was so passionate about getting you on the show when I learned about you and got to talk to you prior to this conversation, because the dot is not hard to connect between the need. We're the bridge, all of us, the bridge of resources, and then Southern Black Girls and Women's Consortium presents a solution. And just to make sure that our audience understands, this is a fund of funds. Yes. Yes, each of these foundations are important in and of themselves, but we're talking about, again, being a force multiplier, so that whatever we do has a bigger impact than what may have been possible before the existence of the Southern Black Girls and Women's Consortium.
And I want to just maybe, if I have a few moments, just to lean into the importance of our structure being a consortium, being a network, being a fund of funds. Because what that allows us to do is to be lean as an organization. So oftentimes when you check your Charity Navigator or your, other kind of, are these people great investments? You're looking at how much money stays inside the building and how much money goes outside the building. We're a small staff. Intentionally. It's not a mistake, right? Because what we really care about is how can we do more dream tours to inspire young people who haven't yet seen anything like that before in their community. No one comes to see them. How many tours? Our bus on our tour is a bubblegum pink, hot pink, fuchsia, glitter bus. We travel with these, a hot pink glitter bus, and we come to Elaine, Arkansas, or Wilcox County for girls. They've never seen that before. They've never seen that before. I'll tell you, as I've been doing these speaking tours and showing pictures of the bus and showing pictures of what we've been doing, we get calls. Someone said, I'm from Detroit. Can you bring that bus here? Can you come here? And so, what we want to do is bring that pink bus to more cities and places where girls don't know anybody is thinking about them and caring for them. We want to spark their next dream. And then we want the funds to be able to invest in their next dream. Because when we ask our girls sometimes, what does the Black Girl Dream Fund mean to you? Or what does Black Girl Joy Awards mean to you? This is a way that we fund directly to girls. They said, no one's ever invested in my dreams before. No one's ever invested in my dreams before. I'm so excited. You want to know what I want to do? And you want to fund that? Yeah, we do. It is a game changer for them. It is an incredible game changer. And so the structure of who we are, our consortium, our network, our leadership is all intended to be lean so that the money comes in and it goes back out to the greater good.
You know, Malika, I've always been very adamant that we have to be careful about expecting black celebrities to do it all. This idea that, you know, black sports stars and entertainers and other celebrities, you know, I call them Oprah class celebrities, should be taking care of all of this, so I don't really have to do anything. And I tell people, no, we all have to do our part. Celebrities may be icing on the cake. They may be obviously positive and helpful influencers. But that said, when I think glitter and hot pink buses, I do think Meg The Stallion.
Yes.
That, to me, that all goes together. That is some very good branding. But
As do we.
some
As do
glitter,
we.
some pom-poms, and some hot pink, and Meg The Stallion fits right in. But talk to me about what it means to have the support and engagement of Meg The Stallion. Speaking of both Black Girl Dreams and Black Girl Magic, and Black Woman Power.
And Black Woman Power. All she needed to do was say our name. And we became, the change from, 4 weeks ago till today when Meg's foundation, the Pete and Thomas Foundation, joined us on this tour, it has been astronomical. We have been doing the good work since 2020. But when she signed on to the tour, the world said, what is she doing? And now we have everybody's attention. It has been incredible. And we are so thankful for her kindness and for her shared alignment with us about Southern Black girls and women. One of the things that I'll share with you, Latasha Brown, who we've mentioned before in this conversation, was able to meet Megan during the Glamour Women's Awards. They were both honored in this at the same time. They were able to share space and share a connection. And from that moment, the two of them have tried to conspire in ways that they might do more good together. And so Megan's foundation, the Pete and Thomas Foundation, that she named after her parents, is actually focused on women's issues, but the alignment for us was around mental health. And I'll share with you from the Southern Black Girls and Women's Consortium perspective is that as we began our work during the height of the pandemic, one of the things that girls let us know directly is that mental health and self-care was at the top of their minds. We gave them an opportunity as young leaders. We have something called the Youth Ambassadors. They are the young people who actually select awards for other young people that are given out throughout our 13 states in the South. And those youth ambassadors, we meet periodically and we get them prepared for doing the work of selecting other awards. And as we were doing those meetings, one day they were just tired. They just said, we're tired. And what they began to tell us was, this is a lot of stress. And when we gave them the opportunity to invest in another girls' organization, they chose an organization that was mental health. I mean, unanimously. One of the things we are hearing consistently, even in our Black Girl Joy Awards, we are hearing the need for mental health and self-care. Megan heard those girls and said, if you all are giving them space for joy, space to breathe, space to be, then I want to sign up for that. I want to sign up for the hot pink pom-poms. and I want to
and the glitter. Don't forget the glitter.
And the glitter. And I want to be a part of that because she also appreciates the value of space to breathe, mental health, and self-care. And one of the things that she asked us as we started this tour was to make sure we made it to her hometown in Houston. So we're definitely going to Houston. And so she's really, really been genuinely concerned because this is her own personal passion, but genuinely concerned about women and girls in the South. And it's been an incredible ride. It's been an incredible ride to have her along.
I can imagine. I can imagine. And mental health is a passion point for me. It, you know, as a father, as a person who, like, I have a standing weekly appointment with my therapist, whether it happens or not, because I'm in that school that says we have to stop treating mental health as emergency medicine. Like, we wait until the breakdown, we wait until the crisis, we wait until the thing, and then we go in. And I know we have a ways to go as a society to get to this point where we think of mental wellness and mental health the same way we think of physical health. That, yeah, you're going to get a physical, you're going to get you just want to take care of yourself the way you would take care of your car. So I could do a whole other show on that because I'm just very passionate about it. And obviously I have family members that in multiple generations who are either have benefited from being proactive about their mental wellness or sadly have suffered because of a lack of proactivity around that. But I'm also really happy to hear and see, and our Black Men Excel Summit is coming up, and our biggest session every year, Black Men Excel, is the mental health session, which
Wow.
once upon a time you couldn't get 15 people in a room to talk about that, and now you get 600 people in a room and they want to talk about it. We understand the taboos and the stigma around even admitting that there were mental health challenges in the Black community. So just it's so important, and you touched on that, and I kind of want you to build on that some more as we talk about the future of the consortium. A lot of this, no matter what population we're talking about, and certainly when we're talking about Black girls and Black women, is creating the safe spaces so that needs can be expressed and space can be had to think about what ways to address those needs. Because too much of what Black girls and Black women experience, and let's say maybe Black boys and Black men too, but let's talk about Black girls and Black women, is that you're supposed to be strong, you're supposed to be tough, you're supposed to be super. You may have to go into your prayer closet once in a while, and I'm not just in prayer closets as a person who's passionate about going to the Lord. But beyond that, you're not even allowed to say that you feel depressed or you feel discouraged or you feel, and as a result, you have the situation where you have a whole bunch of output on behalf of Black women, but not a bunch of investment, and that's a recipe for breakdown. That's a recipe for breakdown. So talk about what you've experienced. You've even talked about it a little bit already, about a bigger part of what you do is create spaces for joy, for freedom to say how I feel and not be judged if I don't say I feel happy and joyful. And to what degree you talk about the girls just being able to say, I'm tired. And not just being told, what do you got to be tired about? Why don't you cheer up? Here, you know what I'm saying? The things that we're told when we say that we're tired and we had enough, as opposed to, well, why don't you take a rest and tell me about how you feel?
Yeah. So there are two things that are kind of intrinsic to our model of giving and why we believe we're disrupting philanthropy and why we want to disrupt philanthropy in a particular way. The first is narrative shift, and the second thing is being girl-centered. One of the things that we did, again, before we gave out a dime, was to set a standard for ourselves that the ways in which we would fund and the ways in which we would set a standard for other organizations that we invest in is that they needed to be girl-centered. And for us, that means not only having girls as participants in your program, not having a girl on your board as a representation of your youth engagement, but having girls as leaders and decision makers in the work that they put forward. Because one of the things we know is that we talk about girls and women, we talk about Black girls and women, but we don't really listen, and we're not responsive and create experiences based on their intelligence and their data and their wisdom that then allow us to actually more accurately address the needs in a community. Now, Latasha if she were here, she would say to us, just because I've experienced poverty, just because I've experienced oppression, doesn't necessarily mean that I understand how to solve those issues. But what I do know is what it feels like when those things are layered upon me, and I understand the consequences of those societal breakdowns in my life, and I can tell you what I need immediately to at least get from underneath that. That is the type of listening that we call forward in girl-centered philanthropy. We listen, we're responsive, and we fund what they say they need because they understand what it feels like to not have the resource in front of them. The second thing that we do, which is incredible, and I know you're a girl dad because you can hear it and you can see it, is the narrative shift. There was a study some time ago. It was called the adultification of black girls. It was about the adultification of black girls and how in a school system, girls at age of 14 are already being treated as adults because we simply could not see them as children. We treat them as adults. And so this idea, we spoke earlier about the preservation of black girlhood, but we're also talking about changing this perspective that we have to be tough and hard. Girls are worthy of protection and love. They are beautiful faces with rosy cheeks or warm cheeks and brown afro puffs. That's who our girls are. They are as beautiful as any other girl. They deserve our hugs and our kisses. They deserve to be able to cry. They deserve to be able to say, I don't know, and not be punished for that. They deserve the space to be a girl and grow up safely in this country, right? In their community and then in their home. So this idea that what we want to be able to do in narrative shift is not only change this idea that we are strong and we can handle it all, so bring it on, but also put forward voices of girls talking about their lives themselves. They don't have to be filtered through me. I'm not a girl any longer. I mean, on the inside, glitter is my favorite color. But in reality, what my driver's license says is I'm not a girl any longer. And so giving them space to lead these conversations, to tell their story, and to be the experts in their own lives, that's important. So we guide ourselves by girl-centered philanthropy and we guide ourselves by narrative shift because we need for everyone to understand that our girls are as beautiful as any other girl in this country and she deserves a hug and she deserves safety and she deserves protection. And to do that, we need to be focused and centered on their lives and responsive to their lives.
You know, this idea of the point of view of the narrative, and even as a proud and dedicated girl dad, one of the most, and by the way, I love my son too. I always have to look out for my son. He's the only, I got one boy and you know 4 girls, but even as a dedicated girl dad, one of the toughest lessons I had to learn in raising them, and they're different age ranges, so I had to relearn the lesson different ways for different personalities, was that as much as I love them, as beautiful as I believe they are, and all that I bring to they had to teach me that you don't know how I feel and see things. And if you're not listening to me, and of course I'm trying to solve all their problems and telling you what you need to do, and I make that point when I look at that a big part of the racial disparity in the nonprofit space, whether it's intended or unintended, is that most of the givers have no idea of and don't listen. You're right. They made up their minds what the beneficiaries need. They're not often in the spaces where they are listening, and not just listening, but literally in the environment of the people who they're intending to benefit. They'll show up at the banquet. They'll write the check. They may even make a visit to, well, some of them, but they're not really. And I don't want to throw people under the bus because most of these people are very well intentioned, but it's different when the person who's being served gets to say, "This is what I need, and this is how I feel," and that has to be validated in many ways above all of your vaunted expertise and, like you said, ivory tower academic study that does a great job at defining the problem, but doesn't always do a great job of building the solutions to that problem. We have a lot of people who are expert on black women and black girls and what's not happening for them. Really great experts.
Yeah.
But it's good for study, it's good for you to get your PhD, but it doesn't seem to make it back to, okay, how do we change that equation? So I'm just saying all that because I really want to emphasize this idea that one of the major benefits of getting more black people engaged and involved as philanthropists is that I feel that there's a passionate need to have a higher proportion of us at least being ambassadors for the people we serve, and maybe even more. Most, like I said, like you said, I may not be a little boy anymore, but I still remember that little boy who, again, grew up being raised by a divorced single mother in a working poor household in a working class community, and I can go back to what I was missing and some of the traumas that I'm still recovering from now, because of that experience in a way that my well-meaning, I'll say, white male peer who may be like me in every other way, from income, economic, education standpoint, but is not in a space to be able to intrinsically translate need
Hmm.
in a way that's effective as a giver. I'm trying to tread lightly because we don't want to discourage giving. But I just think it's
Absolutely.
so important your perspective that we need to not let like we're giving permission, we need to make it a priority that just the way we do in corporate America when we say the customer, we're trying to get the customer's point of view so we can serve them. I don't think we always think that, particularly when it comes to black people and black girls and black children, that we tell them what we think they should have as opposed to answering their question of what they say they need.
So you've given me so much to think about and to respond to, and I'll say, we picked this up earlier, and I just, as I listened to you, made me respond that we've had this impression that philanthropy happens up here and out there, and not in here next to me, that it is given from somebody else to us, and they get to decide what it looks like and how much of it is, and it comes to us, and then we get to figure out how to make it work right on our side. But in truth, while we haven't had the wealth of a Rockefeller, what we have had is consistent investment in ourselves from time immemorial, when black people have consistently shared. We say sometimes ourselves, sharing is consistent with black women's values. We've consistently shared. We've consistently looked out for each other. We've consistently invested. The world of the giving circles will tell you it's time, talent, and treasure. We've consistently done that for each other. So this is bred into how the South and people who have less actually work together to take care of the needs that exist in the community. So this idea that what we've done in terms of the sharing time, talent, and treasure is not philanthropy is just a need to change our understanding of whose value we are placing on the giving. The other thing I think I want to share with you is we've actually changed the invitation. In philanthropy, we have been knocking on the door, trying to get into the tables to find out who has the money and can we get at that table. And maybe if we tell our story well enough and prove ourselves as good investments, we get a table, seat at the table, and get some money to do our work. The invitation has changed. What we're saying to philanthropists is come sit at our table. Learn with us. Give with us. So that you can see what it looks like to fulfill a need immediately. Not, 17 versions of a grant application later, but this community right now, or I guess in recent history, Jackson, Mississippi needed water right now. And how did you think most of that water got there? Because people got together and they delivered the water. People who didn't live there got together and delivered that water. We can be immediate in ways that that and purposeful and on purpose in ways that larger philanthropy can't. So we've switched the invitation and we've invited them to come sit with us and make some of these giving decisions together. Because what we want to teach philanthropy is what it looks like to invest directly and actually perhaps figure out how their invitation changes. We want to be partners with philanthropy. I think I've often said, or been saying as of late, we don't want a handshake. We want a relationship. We want you to come and break bread with us and be with us. We want a long-term relationship, right? We don't want you to give us a grant in a year and go away. We want you to come back. We don't even want you to go away. We want you to be partners with us in doing this work. And that is incredibly important. That is incredibly important.
That changing that narrative it really strikes me because so much of the history of the relationship between the Black community and let's call mainstream um, mainstream nonprofit charitable ecosystem has been almost us performing to prove worthiness of the investment. And again, I'm trying to be kind because many of the people in the traditional philanthropic world are obviously very well meaning. They don't put the resources to that use for nothing. But in the same way that a black woman entrepreneur has to jump through 20 hoops to get the same investment that a white male entrepreneur will just throw a idea on a napkin and get $20 million of investment. I've seen with my own eyes cases where the head of a black fund like the funds that you're being a fund to fund for has to spend a lot more time and energy that frankly they can't afford because of all the time and energy they spend doing that takes away time for actually serving the beneficiaries that they're trying to serve in their communities. And like you said, they got to do 15 versions of a grant. That a counterpart did one version of the grant, and their one version of the grant was good for 5 years, but the black woman has to do 15 versions of the grant every year. So even those administrative disparities. So I just say all that to say, listen, you're the expert. I'm a layperson talking to the expert, but I think that change in narrative from we're not going to spend all our time banging on the doors trying to convince you. We're saying this is an opportunity. We're inviting you in. And of course, those who accept that invitation are really the only ones you want. You kind of self-eliminate and save a lot of time and energy by dealing with people who respond to your invitation because their heads and hearts were probably in the right place and they probably see your cause as worthy, or they wouldn't have responded to the invitation. So I think that's an important point that you're making in terms of how you're approaching things.
We started this work with the notion that we would be a learning lab for philanthropy. We we are building what we need, and we would love for philanthropy to sit alongside us while we build. And I think you are calling forward kind of the delicate nature of this conversation because oftentimes what we hear in the heat of a protest or in the heat of a racial injustice or in the heat of learning that nearly $5 billion and only less than 1% of it are directed at black girls and women, that visceral response is so sharp, it's so painful, it's so hurtful. That what could be conveyed is you're not wanted because you're not doing this work with us. That's actually not the end of the sentence. It's not even the truth. The truth is, all right, you clearly want to give to the South. You gave $5 billion. Let me help you. Let me be your partner. Let us be partners in directing that resource to where it actually makes difference. You want to talk about impact? Let's talk about impact. I will tell you stories about our grantee partners, and I have a list of them that are always at the top of my head. But recently, I looked to see what our girls who received the Black Girl Joy Awards. Again, that is an award that we give directly to girls to invest in their dreams, and for us, that's a place for them to practice their leadership skills and become the women that they are going to be because they're spreading joy in their community and they're building this project at the same time. One of our girls in Camden, Alabama, asked for she asked for her Joy Award so that she could buy art supplies for her classroom. That is a direct connection to the need in her school system. And what she does with her 550, she changes art experiences for children who love art like herself. That's immediate. There's another young lady, I think in Greensboro, North Carolina, who focused her Joy Award on buying uniforms for her track team. They didn't have them. They were wearing basketball jerseys and shorts of their own. And so she took her money to buy Joy Awards. There's another young lady who had, during the pandemic, taken to Instagram and started singing and was recognized by a theater company in New York who invited her to a really prestigious theater camp, free. But she didn't have the money to get there. And so she directed her 550 to spend the money to get to New York so she could pursue her dreams. Those are immediate impacts and changes in community in ways that spread joy to me because I'm thinking I could have never found her, but she found me and she told me what her dream was. And here I could give her 550 to get to New York and sing. And I can give her 550 so she can run track. And I can give her 550 so she can make art supplies. Philanthropy can learn alongside with us. The door is open. It's absolutely open.
Malikah, this is our second long conversation around this too. I can't get enough of talking to you about this. I have to think of another reason to interview for somebody.
I will always have a good story now. I will always have a good one.
No, again, I say this about every guest I invite on Beyond the Hype. What you're talking about is what this show is all about. That you can get past kind of what we think we know about a given topic, and not only get to understand what the truth of what's happening, but also where we can insert ourselves to make a difference. And so again, I'm urging my audience, as I do practically every show, don't just think about how great the conversation was and how enlightened you are. The test of a good interview, as I say this about events as well, is what we do after we hear the interview or after we attend the event. And so I'm really hoping that I'm believing, I'm going to go beyond hope. I have faith. I am believing that people will be moved to action in support of the Southern Black Girls and Women's Consortium, the bus tour, the Black Girls Dream Conference. And again, this is not the first year and it won't be the last year. So if you can't get on board the bus literally this year, the tour is not stopping. This is an ongoing thing. So
this is an ongoing thing.
Yeah, let's close out by just again reminding the Beyond the Hype audience, the Black Enterprise audience, where they can follow you, where they can follow the consortium, the website, where they can go to give, learn more, and so we can keep this thing going.
So they can find us on Instagram at Southern Black Girls. They can find us at our website at Southern Black Girls. They can find us on LinkedIn and on Facebook. Join us there. If you can't get on the bus with us, join us there. Also, be sure to register for our conference in Birmingham, Alabama on September 17th, so that we can spend time together and get to know you. And hopefully, if you're a grantee partner we've already funded, we can say hello and learn what's happening with your organization. And if you'd love to be a grantee partner, we'd like to meet you. Or if you're a woman with wisdom and you want to share it, come. We want your wisdom. So join us on the 17th of September. At the culmination of our conference, we're going to have one more of those amazing bus tour dream villages. So we will have one in Kelly Ingram Park. It is going to be the biggest one we put together. So come and enjoy yourselves. We have plenty of giveaways. We have plenty of family-friendly fun. And we want to meet you all. And finally, I'd say, please find a way that you can make a donation to our work, because our work is a good donation in our country. And we know that once you make this investment in us, what we do with it is put it right back in the community immediately. You
said it all, Malikah. I'm going to say it again. Let's not just benefit from Black Girl Magic. Let's invest in Black Girl Dreams. And this is a great opportunity to do that. Malikah, thank you for joining me, making time on short notice to be a guest for Beyond the Hype.
No, I enjoy our conversations. I do, really do.
Well, then we're going to have more conversations. That's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do. Since we like it, we're going to keep doing it.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. So this has been another episode of Beyond the Hype. This episode was brought to you by Nationwide. I'm your host, Alfred Edmond Jr., Senior VP and Executive Editor at Large at Black Enterprise. Support the Southern Black Girls and Women's Consortium. You can do something. And if you're not, in addition to doing whatever you can do, tell somebody. You know about somebody in the South. You know somebody that can be there. Let's spread the word. Let's make this thing happen. Let's raise the bar, and let's support this great work. Again, thank you for joining us. I'll see you next time on the next episode of Beyond the Hype. Celebrate the excellence in Black men at the Black Enterprise Black Men Excel Summit. Meet our country's best and brightest Black men who are redefining their image.
We need to make sure that the world knows that we are here and that we are doing our business, so let us salute ourselves for that.
Be there this October 12th through the 14th at the Gaylord National Resort and Convention Center in National Harbor, Maryland.
It's time for people to see that black men are doing great things and doing it positively.
By doing this Excel Summit, it empowers us, it inspires us to be more creative and to do things that we haven't necessarily or traditionally done.
I met some great people here that I plan to do business with in the future, and I plan to learn from.
This was an eye-opening experience.
For more information, log on to blackenterprise.com/BMX.